In recent years, the growing body of research on environmental toxins has increasingly pointed to a troubling class of agricultural chemicals that remain in widespread use despite mounting evidence of their harmful effects. One such chemical, an herbicide known for its potency in controlling weeds and facilitating crop drying, has drawn renewed scrutiny from scientists and public health experts alike. This compound, though banned in several major global markets, continues to be applied across vast swaths of farmland in the United States and other parts of the world. A comprehensive review published earlier this year has now shed new light on how this substance may be causing harm not only at the point of contact but also deep within the human body, triggering a cascade of systemic damage that begins in the digestive tract. The findings, compiled from more than 100 scientific studies, suggest that the primary route through which this herbicide enters the body is via ingestion, making the gastrointestinal system its first target. Once inside, it begins to disrupt the delicate lining of the intestines, damaging the microscopic structures responsible for nutrient absorption. These finger-like projections, known as villi, are essential for extracting vitamins, minerals, and other vital components from food. When they are compromised, the body's ability to sustain itself nutritionally is significantly impaired. Beyond structural damage, the herbicide also interferes with the biochemical processes that keep the intestinal wall intact. It triggers the production of reactive oxygen species, highly unstable molecules that wreak havoc on cellular structures. This oxidative stress leads to inflammation and weakens the tight junctions between cells in the gut lining. As these junctions break down, the barrier that normally prevents harmful substances from entering the bloodstream becomes porous, allowing toxins, bacteria, and undigested particles to seep into circulation. This phenomenon, often referred to as leaky gut, has been linked to a host of chronic inflammatory conditions and autoimmune responses elsewhere in the body. But the damage does not stop there. The disruption of the intestinal environment also alters the composition of the gut microbiome, the complex ecosystem of trillions of microorganisms that play a crucial role in digestion, immunity, and even brain function. Beneficial bacteria, which help maintain balance and protect against pathogens, are reduced in number, while potentially harmful microbes proliferate. At the same time, the production of key metabolites that support immune regulation and tissue repair is diminished. This shift creates a feedback loop of inflammation and microbial imbalance that further exacerbates intestinal injury and impairs recovery. What makes this situation particularly alarming is the growing understanding of the gut's central role in overall health. Scientists have long recognized that the digestive system is more than just a processing unit for food. It is a dynamic organ that communicates constantly with the liver, kidneys, lungs, and even the brain. When something disrupts the gut, the consequences can ripple outward, affecting distant organs and systems. This concept, known as the gut organ axis, is gaining traction as researchers uncover how disturbances in the intestines can drive disease processes throughout the body. Indeed, the review highlights compelling evidence that the initial injuries caused by this herbicide in the gut can set off a chain reaction that reaches beyond the digestive system. In the liver, for example, the influx of toxins and inflammatory signals appears to trigger mitochondrial dysfunction, interfering with the energy-producing powerhouses of cells and leading to tissue damage. Over time, this can result in liver inflammation, scarring, and impaired detoxification capacity, all of which contribute to broader systemic toxicity. The kidneys, too, bear the brunt of this exposure. Laboratory models show that the herbicide induces acute kidney injury by damaging cell membranes and activating inflammatory pathways that lead to fibrosis and declining renal function. Without adequate filtration, waste products and toxins accumulate in the blood, compounding the burden on other organs and accelerating the progression of disease. Even the respiratory system is not spared. While less potent than some of its chemical relatives, this herbicide still generates reactive molecules capable of injuring lung tissue. Although the exact mechanisms are not fully understood, early data indicate that prolonged exposure could contribute to pulmonary damage and breathing difficulties, especially in individuals already vulnerable due to pre-existing conditions or environmental factors. Perhaps most concerning is the possibility that the herbicide contributes to the development of multiple organ dysfunction syndrome, a life-threatening condition in which two or more organ systems begin to fail simultaneously. Though the precise pathways linking gut damage to multi-system collapse remain under investigation, the patterns observed in experimental models suggest that the herbicide plays a pivotal role in initiating and sustaining this dangerous cascade. This latest analysis comes amid heightened awareness of the long-term health impacts of pesticide exposure, particularly among children and communities living near heavily sprayed agricultural areas. There is growing concern that repeated low-level contact with these chemicals, even at concentrations considered safe by regulatory standards, can have cumulative effects that manifest years later. The implications extend beyond individual health, touching on issues of environmental justice, corporate accountability, and the need for stronger safeguards in agricultural practices. Interestingly, the herbicide in question belongs to a family of compounds that includes another highly toxic agent, one that has been definitively linked to neurodegenerative diseases and banned in over 70 countries. Despite sharing similar modes of action and structural properties, the two have been treated differently by regulators. While one has been phased out in many regions due to its dangers, the other remains legally available in some of the world's largest agricultural economies. This discrepancy raises important questions about the criteria used to evaluate chemical safety and the influence of industry lobbying on policy decisions. The persistence of this herbicide in the environment adds another layer of complexity to the issue. Unlike some pesticides that degrade quickly after application, this compound can linger in soil and water for extended periods. Its tendency to bind to soil particles means it can accumulate over time, increasing the risk of contamination in groundwater and food crops. In aquatic ecosystems, even short-term exposure can disrupt fragile ecological balances, affecting not only plant life but also the animals that depend on those habitats. As residues build up in the food chain, the potential for unintended consequences grows, posing risks not only to humans but also to wildlife and entire ecosystems. Despite the depth and consistency of the findings presented in the review, significant gaps in knowledge remain. Most of the existing research has relied on animal models, which, while informative, do not always accurately reflect human biology or real-world exposure scenarios. Long-term studies tracking populations exposed to the herbicide, especially farm workers, rural residents, and others in high-risk groups, are urgently needed to confirm and expand upon current findings. Additionally, more work must be done to develop targeted interventions that could mitigate the damage once exposure occurs, including strategies aimed at restoring gut integrity, rebalancing the microbiome, and supporting organ function. The call for improved detoxification methods is particularly pressing, given the lack of effective treatments for poisoning from this class of chemicals. In cases where individuals ingest large amounts, whether accidentally or intentionally, the outcomes can be severe, sometimes fatal. Medical professionals currently have limited tools to counteract the damage once it begins, underscoring the need for better clinical protocols and emergency response strategies. At the heart of this issue lies a broader debate about how society manages chemical risk. For decades, regulatory agencies have operated under frameworks that prioritize economic considerations alongside health assessments, often delaying or diluting protective measures in the face of industry resistance. The history of pesticide regulation is rife with examples of companies downplaying hazards, disputing independent research, and exerting pressure on policymakers to maintain market access. The continued use of this herbicide in certain countries, despite overwhelming evidence of its dangers, suggests that these dynamics are still at play. Environmental advocates and public health officials argue that precautionary principles should guide decision-making when it comes to substances with demonstrated toxicity. Waiting for definitive proof of harm in human populations before taking action can result in irreversible damage to both people and the planet. The European Union's ban on this herbicide, along with restrictions in other regions, reflects a more proactive approach to safeguarding health and the environment, an approach that some believe should be adopted more widely. As the scientific community continues to explore the full scope of this herbicide's impact, one thing has become increasingly clear. The gut is not merely a passive victim of exposure but rather a critical gateway through which environmental toxins exert their most profound effects. Understanding this connection opens new avenues for prevention, treatment, and policy reform. It also reinforces the importance of maintaining the integrity of the gut microbiome as a cornerstone of overall well-being. In the coming years, the pressure will likely intensify on governments, corporations, and international bodies to re-evaluate the safety of agricultural chemicals and implement stricter controls where necessary. With mounting evidence pointing to the far-reaching consequences of exposure, the case for limiting or eliminating the use of this herbicide, and others like it, has never been stronger. Whether the political will exist to act decisively remains to be seen, but for those who study its effects, the message is unambiguous. What starts in the gut does not stay in the gut. The evidence is clear. What starts in the gut doesn't stay in the gut. This widely used herbicide may be doing far more damage than previously understood, setting off a chain reaction of harm that reaches deep into the body. From weakening the intestinal barrier to triggering chronic inflammation and potentially leading to multi-organ dysfunction, its impact is both systemic and alarming. While banned in many parts of the world, it remains in use across major agricultural regions, raising urgent questions about how we regulate chemicals in our environment and food supply. And with growing concerns about long-term exposure, especially among vulnerable communities, the need for transparency, research, and reform has never been greater. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss the latest updates on health and lifestyle. Thanks for watching.